Oh, hey kids. Tom Harmon here with Sweet and Salty with Tom and Manny. Manny just did her shot on toner, I believe. And so as many of you may know, I'm a politically oriented toward libertarianism. And, so I thought I would spend a little time enlightening you as to what does that really mean? Does that mean we believe in complete anarchy on the streets? No. But that's what the duopoly would have you believe, that we believe in anarchy. And so I would like to address, some of the bases for libertarianism. I would remind everyone that, the basis for libertarianism is the basis of our Constitution and how America got started as a libertarian culture, and then has slowly over time been corrupted and perverted into this two-party system that, as most of you know, is completely inept and in some ways completely corrupted and by definition is evil. So let's get into it. I'd like to introduce you to a book that's called The Libertarian Mind by David Boaz. And I don't know if it's Boaz or Boaz, but I think it's Boaz. But it, recommended reading. Senator Rand Paul highly recommends it, as he's got some real libertarian slants on, doing bizarre things like applying common sense to any new legislation, crazy stuff like that, like how are we going to pay for this, as opposed to, I'll vote for that if you'll vote for my bill, and that kind of deal making that goes on every day in the halls of our legislatures across the land and in Washington, D.C. But so I wanted to give you a couple of, what did I do with my glasses? There they are. Yes, I'm 70 years old, so I need glasses. Get over it. But again, the Libertarian Mind, so I thought I would just give you a little preamble. This entire book, of course, discusses the ins and outs of all the different political parties that exist right now. But this is a quote from Bernard Bailyn, who's a Pulitzer Prize-winning Harvard University historian, and in his essay, The Central Themes of the American Revolution. And the major themes of 18th century radical libertarianism were brought to realization here in America. The first is the belief that power is evil, a necessity perhaps, but an evil necessity, that it is infinitely corrupting, and that it must be controlled, limited, restricted in every way compatible with the minimum of civil order. Okay? Written constitutions, the separation of powers, the Bill of Rights, limitations on executives, on legislatures and courts, restrictions on the right to coerce and wage war, all express the profound distrust of power that lies at the ideological heart of the American Revolution and that has remained with us as a permanent legacy ever after. We've all heard the phrase, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Another turn on that is power attracts the corruptible. And it's kind of like human nature. The larger an organization gets, the more sociopathic it becomes and the less interested it is in protecting the individual rights of the citizenry. So, if you will, libertarianism was how we got started. And it has been over time, as we grew in power, become quite corrupted, and all the polls tell us that most of us don't trust the government. What's the that latest poll that said how effective do you think Congress is, and only 11% perceive Congress as being any good at what they do. And of course, government has no incentive to be efficient. And so anytime a government program is put in place, you will note that it is done in the most inefficient manner possible. And again, it seems to be human nature and part of it's our fault is because government does represent our composite irresponsibility. We're asking the government to handle the problems of the world rather than volunteerism and each individual taking care of his own. Charity begins at home, so on and so forth. So that's really what libertarian means, is that government should be limited so severely that it barely maintains civil order. Okay, and then that way because once you take the rights of a certain sector of people away, by definition, you've taken the rights, you're eroding the rights of everyone. It's just a matter of who they're focusing on next. Okay, so remember, the government does not act in your best interest. It can't. It can only act in its best interest. It wants to maintain itself. It wants to grow itself. And there's my boy Buddy. He's audio bombing the shoot here. He's got some strong opinions he'd like to share with you. I don't know if you speak cat, but I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I would give you another quote from Columbia University historian Richard Hofstadter. Wrote, "The fierceness of the political struggles in American history have often been misleading, for the range of vision embraced by the primary contestants in the major parties has always been bounded by the horizons of property and enterprise." Fancy way of saying it's always follow the money, okay? However, much at odds on specific issues, the major political traditions have shared a belief in the rights of property, the philosophy of economic individualism, the values of competition, and they have accepted the economic virtues of capitalist culture, okay? And at least on the surface, it appears that way, but really ever since we went off the gold standard, it's tough to make an argument for that. Yes, sir. Yes, I know. Tell me to calm down. Whoops, excuse me, sir. So then I would give you one more thing to consider as we move forward in this. You don't mind, do you, buddy? Okay. Much of the confusion stems from two different senses of the word liberty, a distinction notably explored by the 19th century French libertarian Benjamin Constant, the liberty of the ancients compared with that of the moderns. Constant noted that the ancient Greek writers, the idea of liberty meant the right to participate in public life, in making decisions for the entire community. Thus, Athens was a free polity because of all the citizens. That is, all the free adult Athenian males could go to the arena and participate in the decision-making process. We don't have that anymore, obviously. We elect people. They win a popularity contest, and without having necessarily any competencies at all, are allowed to make decisions that have far-reaching impact on our lives and for which they do not have to suffer the consequences of, okay? So here's a nice way of boiling it down to is who's going to make your decisions about your life, you or somebody else, all right? Do you spend the money you earn, or does Congress? Do you pick the school where your child goes to, or does the school board? Do you decide what drugs to take when you're sick, or does the Food and Drug Administration in Washington decide that? In a free society, you make the choices about your life. In a politically dominated society, someone else makes those choices. And because people naturally resist letting others make important choices for them, the political society is of necessity based on coercion. That's an interesting point to take because it is all based on coercion. The violation, no matter how minor, how small, a parking ticket carries with it coercion. And that coercion can be everything from a minor inconvenience to your work schedule to, if you resist, through qualified immunity, representatives from the state or local municipalities have the right to shoot you in the head and justify it. they're making, they're using coercion as their natural right over you. So do not resist. You must comply, no matter how minor the inconvenience might be to you, or how major the inconvenience might be to you. If you need a license to fish and you're fishing without a license, and you resist being arrested for fishing without a license, they can shoot you in the head. That's coercion. When an armed person shows up on your door as a representative of the state, it is implied that they are armed and you are not. And if you don't, follow along and comply and submit and drop to your knees, put your hands behind your head, no matter how minor the violation, there carries with it an implied ultimate death sentence. It can get that bad, and it can get bad fast. So a libertarian society doesn't allow that sort of policing to exist. Okay, if there's a victim, then you investigate it and as a crime, and punishments follow thereof through the judicial system. If there is no victim, case in point, a person smoking a marijuana cigarette, making their own choice. I don't smoke marijuana. You smoke marijuana? I don't care. It's your body, your choice. No government has the right to come in a victimless crime and send you to prison for years and years and years. Okay, so that will tie you into the idea of the difference between a libertarian society and one controlled by, that is based in control by coercion. Okay, so in the future we will get in more depth in this, but there you have it. Vote libertarian, vote gold, and vote with a conscience, vote with integrity. Because if a Democrat deserves your vote, they better, you better put them through the strainer, if you will, to justify voting for a Democrat, a Republican, a Green Party member, or a Libertarian. Use your critical thinking skills. Don't just vote because you happen to be registered with a particular party. You're not required to vote Democrat every time. You're not required to vote Republican every time. And you're not even required to vote. Okay? So if you are going to vote, if you are going to move from indifference to action, then you will be at the polls in whatever form it takes place this year. And hopefully you will understand that the basic evil of a two-party system is endemic in the way it's constructed, and the only way to deconstruct it is to start getting third-party candidates into those positions of making decisions, for the general welfare. So you can have a fantastic day. Buddy says you have a fantastic day as well. He is a staunch libertarian. Okay, he says if there's no victim, there's no crime. Do whatever you want to do, just don't be a dick. Okay? You have a nice day.